Welcome back, pro wrestling fans. Welcome back, IWC. It's your old buddy, the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy, and I tell it like it is. I'll say that to say this here on Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel for Chaos Corner, and another special episodic YouTube adventure in story time. Today's subject, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Drop an elbow on that like button. Share, subscribe, get us into the algorithm. Shout out to my two mods, the OTS Tribal Queen, and my brother from another mother, and that would be Austin Nance. One man, unique, unedited, unscripted, raw dog for you, the fans. 25 feet below the surface of the earth. Now, fans, guys, gals, I can't thank you enough for being here. This is gonna be, as the kids say, a banger. So sit back, relax, grab a snack, grab a beverage, grab some breakfast, some lunch, whatever it is that you want to do. I'm here for a temporary distraction, a much-needed stress reliever for all of us in 2025 and the insane developments going on in this world. Stay mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually fit. Stay with like-minded people because if he's for us, no one else can be against us. Shout out to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because without him, none of this would be possible. So that's my shoot from the beginning, and I want you guys, obviously, to relax and enjoy the show. Over 5,000 videos on the channel, well over 1 million total views, and we're back. We're still on appeal with YouTube, and this is for you, YouTube, and you still owe me money. I'm not hard to find. So we are on appeal. The Midnight Rider, the Midnight Chaos Rider has the day off, so it's just you and me, the GOC. From manager to broadcast journalist. Just like a pretty girl doesn't like other pretty girls, Andre the Giant didn't like big wrestlers. I remember when Manute Bol, a basketball player from Nigeria who was taller than Andre, would come to the Capitol Center in Washington. Andre would never go out and meet him because of something Vince McMahon Sr. told him. Vince said not to let anyone see Andre with someone who was bigger than he is. Andre had to be the biggest man in the world. John Studd wanted to be the biggest guy in the business, but he couldn't because of Andre. When Andre would work with Studd, he would really bump him around. Studd couldn't take bumps because of his size. He would get in the ring with Andre and get pulverized, even losing some hair and getting some teeth loosened. Andre wanted Studd to stay on him and beat him down, and John simply didn't want to make him mad. On television, Studd would say he was the real giant, and I think Andre believed some of his interviews. I wasn't aware that the WWF was going to turn Andre heel in 1987. He walked up to me one day and said, "We're going to have some fun, boss." I was confused because I wasn't managing him at that time. A few days later, Vince approached me and said, "Andre would like you to be his manager." That was quite an honor. No one had ever managed him before, and he never wanted to be associated with anybody else. Andre always talked for himself. I think he just felt I was over and he could trust me. It was Andre's idea to pass the torch to Hulk Hogan and to have the match at WrestleMania 3. The finish was clear. Hogan would make a comeback, slam Andre, and pin him. But you have to know that once you got your hands between Andre's legs and lifted him up, if he wanted to go forward, you couldn't stop him. He could hold you down and tell that referee, "Count." That referee would count. I would have even run in the ring and counted myself, said Heenan. I don't think Hogan ever wanted to work with Andre because I don't think he trusted Andre. Trust is very important in the ring, and when Andre wanted something, he took it. Baron von Raschke once explained to me why Andre had bad teeth and even worse breath. Do you know what that's from? Eating handfuls of villagers, said the Baron. Andre was a natural heel because he grew to hate people. Fans would walk up to him and ask questions like, how tall are you? How much do you weigh? Are you Andre the Giant? Hello, McFly, is anybody home? To you fans out there with the brain of a dehydrated baby that would ask such a question of the Giant? Be aware of your surroundings, will you, for crying out loud? No, he was Willie Shoemaker. Who do you think he was? Bueller? Bueller? Anyone? That just goes to show you what the neckbeards and mouth breathers and virgins and geeks and dweebs and goons and dorks and sickos from the IWC are really all about. No offense, man. Kayfabe, lighten up. I'm not talking about my fans who watch here. But it really leaves something to be desired with some of the fans out there. No matter what era, especially here today in 2025, I could smell them from the TV. I'm just saying, man. He turned babyface at WrestleMania 6 when he lost the tag team title to be held with Haku that he held with Haku. You guys get it. After the match, he was supposed to attack me and slap me around. I saw that big paw coming down and I moved to the left. I thought he was going to right to left, but he missed me. His hand moved back to the left and I was moving my face to the right and he connected the old paintbrush. He was paintbrushing the hell out of me, one step ahead, even with the brain. We were on the same level, just different people at a different time, brain. Rest in peace. I couldn't tell him to stop. I was like driving a golf ball in a bathroom. I didn't know where he was coming from. But turning back to a baby face didn't change how he felt about the people. Well, I would have memberships to all the airline clubs so I could go into the lounges and not be bothered. Andre wanted to sit in the hall, but everybody would bother him. And in turn, he would swear at them. I'd ask Andre to come into the lounge with me, but he refused. Again, it was something Vince McMahon Sr. told him years ago. Everyone must see him, and he must be out in the public. Andre became bigger than life, and he hated it. Andre did have an escape. He had a favorite French restaurant in Connecticut. The food was just like his mom used to cook. He could sit there in a quiet and nobody bothered him. They served liver, tongues, lips, and lungs. Liver, tongues, lips, and lungs. I used to call the place the Autopsy Grill. They had an old guy at the grill named Charlie who played the piano. I told him once, one of these days you're going to be on the menu here. Before his WWF career, Andre would travel the country wrestling in many territories. At the time, there were at least 30 in the United States and Canada. Everyone who worked with Andre referred to him as Boss. Why Boss? As you can see, we're interrupted in the background here. It's always going on down here in Chaos Corner when we're in the bunker. I like being in the lounge, to be honest with you, although the bunker has a certain, a je ne sais quoi to it. Alexa, play tropical beach sounds for my fans, you guys, because we're right around the corner from March. Why Boss? Think of the old question of where a bear sleeps. Anywhere he wants to. Replace bear with boss, and that summed up Andre. He even held the Live with Regis and Kathy Lee show hostage. Regis wanted to go to commercial, and Andre kept threatening Regis, yelling, "No!" Andre hated to wrestle in the AWA. Vern Gagne also booked him to wrestle twice, a match on the card and the Battle Royal. Andre thought he was a special attraction and should wrestle only once. Now, you can't disagree with the legend, with the boss. I mean, that's a fact. He would have said something about it, but he was usually booked higher up on the card with an opponent that would draw. Even though he hated doing it, Andre worked twice for the good of the promotion. But when he would work the singles match, he'd wrestle only a couple of minutes. And although he won most of the battle royals, there were times when he would just throw himself out of the ring if he was in a bad mood. However, not before backing up 6 wrestlers in the turnbuckle with his rear end and executing a unique, lethal, and very common finishing move for him. Passing gas that sounded more like thunder. Non-wrestlers were not immune to Andre's finisher. He would do it in the elevators with a bunch of old women in there. He'd scowl at them and then yell, "Quit it!" Andre's mood would depend on the town. We were in Rapid City, South Dakota with the AWA, and he clearly didn't want to be there. He got in the ring, obviously tanked, a little umbriaga, looked at everybody, and again eliminated himself from the Battle Royal. A few days later, I was serving as the agent backstage when Vern Gagne walked up to me and said, "I hear Andre is finishing his matches too early." I said, "Well, that's Andre." He said, "You keep him in there." I said, "Vern, if I had a Thompson submachine gun, I couldn't keep him in there. When the man goes home, he goes home. Good night, Mr. Gagne." I bumped into Andre once at O'Hare Airport. I hadn't seen him in about 10 years. This big paw grabbed me by the shoulder. I turned around, and there he was, with his plaid suit and big hair. "Boss, how have you been?" I asked. "You have drink with me?" Andre said. Demanded. Not a very good Andre impression by yours truly. "I can't. I've got to catch a plane to Omaha. I've only got 10 minutes. 10 minutes. He wouldn't let go. "No, you have drink with me." "No, I have to go, please." "Well, good to see you." Andre left, and I walked about 10 more steps when a couple of businessmen, Bob Newhart types, asked me, "Who was that?" I said, "I don't know, but I was on my way to the plane, and he grabbed me and asked me to go into the bathroom with him." They both screamed, "OMG! Oh my God," and ran in the opposite direction of where Andre was going. Andre used to like to have a few eye-openers in the morning. Well, in the afternoon and at night, too. We were sitting at a bar on 47th Street in New York. Andre sat there and played cards while consuming 86 beers. One day, he had maybe 7 or 8 double or triple vodkas at the airport waiting to board a 7 a.m. flight. After finishing his usual, he got on a plane. Immediately, he started pulling up the armrest in first class to give himself more room. The flight attendant walked up and asked him, "Sir, can I get you anything?" "Yes, a screwdriver," Andre said. He finally pulled the armrest up and sat down. The flight attendant came back and handed him a screwdriver, an actual screwdriver. A Stanley, I believe it was. Andre looked at the screwdriver, then at her and said, "What would you have brought me if I said a Bloody Mary?" That's a good question to ponder. I approached the flight attendant and took her into the galley. "There's something that you might want, that might get you by in life," I said to her. Something to that effect. Imparting some words of wisdom. A guy gets on the plane and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. He's got a plaid suit on. He's 7'4" and 550 pounds. He's got hair like the MGM Lion and he's drunk. Don't bring him tools. You get that, right? Let me wrap the chains. You guys know my background. I gotta bring the chains around so I feel right telling this story, and we're interrupted by that mechanical AI bitch once again. I still have to have heat with her, you know that. Not only with here on YouTube and my protest and the circumstances going on with the channel as they have their foot on my throat for now, at least coming up on 6 months, I now have heat with this mechanical AI bitch as well. Is anybody listening? Is anybody home? I leave for a few weeks in protest and have the Midnight Chaos Rider on here because this is a story within a story. And this is what happens. That just goes to show you that the guardian of chaos, Big Daddy, has to be here. Because there's 3 types of people in this world. Those who don't know what happened, those who wonder what happened, and people like the guardian of chaos that make things happen. I'm not going anywhere yet. You can count on that. As much as they want me off the air, we're an appeal here, I ain't stopping. You got that? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. In order to get respect, you have to start with respecting yourself. Once you do that, you open other people's minds to respecting you. You got that, right? Thank God, the bartender said. Last time he was here, I gave him last call and he didn't want to leave. I told him that I could only stay as long as he was drinking. Andre ordered 40 vodka tonics and sat and drank them until 4 o'clock in the morning. I met Rob Reiner at the Comedy Awards in Los Angeles after Andre died. He was the producer of The Princess Bride, a movie that Andre appeared in. I introduced myself to him and he said, "Boy, Andre was quite a guy." I said he certainly was. Do you know what his bill was at the Hyatt in London the month we shot the movie with him? Reiner asked. No, Ian said. $40,000 and there wasn't one movie on the bill. He never left the bar. $40,000. Women loved Andre. One night he got romantic with a petite young lady in his hotel room. The problem was he didn't bother to close the curtain on his first floor hotel room. Sheikh Adnan Al-Kaisi and some other Arab gentleman walked by and witnessed the whole event. There was Andre with his big mane of hair and this small young lady. I asked Adnan what it looked like. He said it looked like a lion raping a rabbit. Picture that. I don't want to get too graphic here. Andre had his share of women. Flight attendants would approach us on the planes. We have to ask you guys something about him. Could we? I know what you're going to ask us. That's what I'd say. You're going to ask how big he is. You don't know, do you? I held my hands apart wide. See, I told you. One stewardess would say that to the other. Talk about the Longini. It's good to be back. Today, on what would have been my oldest brother's birthday, who passed away 2 months ago. I miss you, Guru. I miss you, brother. And if we could take a moment of silence in honor of my brother, I would greatly appreciate it. God bless you, my brother. I'll see you down the road. Rest in peace. Thank you, fans. One night we were in a bar in Atlanta owned by Tim Woods, who wrestled as Mr. Wrestling. Andre saw this woman who was quite well endowed up on top. He walked over to her and said, "Let me see them." The girl took her bra off under her shirt, gave it to him and said, "If you go across the street and put it on a horse, I'll show you them." Across the street was a bar called the Crystal Club. On the roof of the bar was a wooden horse. Andre, at 3 a.m, forced to cook out on the roof of the bar with a ladder. Andre to the top of the horse, put on the bra on it, while the poor cook was holding the ladder. Now picture this. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. The 7'4" giant is with a large-breasted woman. She says, I'll let you see him if you put it on the horse. Andre goes across to the Crystal Bar, the Crystal Club, climbs up, takes the cook with him, makes him cook on top of the roof, and then puts the bra on the wooden horse, not an actual horse. You guys understand story time here, right? That's one for the ages. He climbed down the ladder and returned to the bar. The girl was long gone by then, but the horse across the street never looked better. You can't make this stuff up. That's why you come here, to learn history, to learn facts, to learn from me. So you're better off when you walk out of here than when you fucking walked in, so you could hold an actual conversation at your next picnic or barbecue or family gathering or outing or at the water cooler at work or at a pub, a tavern, well, I don't know, wherever it is that you go. And who knows, I may be there. So you could hold an actual conversation and know what the fuck you're talking about. WWF referee Tim White once said that Andre had no shame. He used to drive Andre's van to the arenas. I'd ride with him and Arnold Skolin would play cards with him. We were in Glens Falls, New York for a television taping. WWF television was always set up with every inch of the backstage area used. Andre couldn't find a place to play cards, so he moved his table to the other side of the curtain, which was the hallway where people would be coming in later. He didn't give a dang. There he was, playing cribbage with Tito Santana. The chains are back. The chaos is back. Well, actually, I never really left. It's that whole Pacino and Hoffman thing. Hoffman, Pacino, Hoffman. Midnight Chaos Rider, the GOC Big Daddy, Dusty Rhodes, the Midnight Rider. Did you ever see them both in the same place at the same time? The answer is no. So get the story that's going on here on the channel as we read story time here. We're bouncing back and forth. Stay with me. Don't go anywhere. We have plenty of content and story time coming back. There he was playing cribbage with Tito Santana. Around 7 o'clock, people started to walk down the hall, and Andre was sitting there playing cards. Naked! And he actually finished the game. Andre never wore a coat. It could be the dead of winter. He would be wearing shoes with no socks, pants, and shirt that was open. Sometimes he wore a sports coat, sometimes not. He would if he decided to take it off in the car that night or it wasn't covering the pool, if you know what I mean. When he was sitting around in the nude, Andre had a tendency to leave his shirt open in public. What a sight to behold. Once we were eating at a Chinese restaurant when the waitress ran up and yelled, "Button shirt, button shirt." Andre ignored her. "Button shirt." Andre said to her, "If I can't show you my chest, then I will show you my ass." And he mooned the whole restaurant. These are getting heavy. Bear with me. This is what happens when you're live to tape. This is what happens when there's no green screen or buttons or bells or whistles or music or graphics. Nothing against anybody, but I bring it to you old school, the OG way. The way I do it. Andre said to her, the chest, and he mooned. Andre was sitting in a country and western bar with his shirt wide open. A little bouncer walked up by and asked her, "Hey, you have to button up your shirt." Andre said nothing and kept drinking. "I told you to button your shirt." Nothing. The manager walked up to him and said, "Sir, you have to button your shirt." The manager called the police. Barney showed up all by himself. "Sir, you have to button your shirt." Andre said nothing. The cop actually called for backup. Several officers were now in the bar. The sergeant approached him and he said, "You have to button your shirt." Andre said nothing. "Okay, stand up," the sergeant said, obviously ready to take Andre into custody. Andre stood up and never stopped. The cop watched him get up out of the chair and kept watching and watching and watching, realizing how big Andre was. The sergeant turned to the other cops. You know, it's hot in here. A Japanese wrestler named Kochika tried to break Andre's leg once just to see how tough he was. What a mentality this man had. He was 6'3" and about 260 pounds, facing a guy the size of Andre. I asked Andre, "What did you do to him, boss?" You see, this is a collection of short stories about Andre through the brain's eyes. Do you know how to pull on a full Nelson and how to apply it, he asked. Picture a full Nelson. One wrestler stands behind another wrestler. The first wrestler in back puts his hands in front of the second wrestler and then brings them up behind the neck of the second wrestler so that the first wrestler's arms are wrapped around the arms of the second wrestler. I said to Andre, yes. Then I stood in front of him. I was trying to picture Andre having this man in a full Nelson and then stepping in front of him with his hip. What did you do then? I asked. I fell forward. What happened to him, boss? Andre put his hand over his mouth, laughed, and yelled, "Coma!" Japanese fans are funny. In America, if you run into the stands and attack the fans, you get sued. In Japan, you can chase them and throw chairs at them. Tiger Jeet Singh used to take his saber sword and slap people with it. Stan Hansen used to take his bullwhip with the cowbell, whip people with it. The fans would run like hell, like they did when Bruiser Brody ran through the land of the rising sun. And when you stopped chasing them, they'd sit back down like nothing happened. I managed Andre once in Japan. He was supposed to wrestle on the roof of a supermarket 5 stories up. They asked Andre not to chase the people because they thought the people might run off the roof. Andre said, for 10 grand, I won't chase them. The promoter came back and gave him the 10 grand. After WrestleMania 3, I sold Andre to Ted DiBiase. The WWF wanted somebody to work with Andre as a tag team partner. I couldn't manage DiBiase because he had Virgil. It never made sense to me. I sold Andre, the only man who could win me a championship, but I kept the King Harley race. Go figure. I hope you're enjoying this. We're not even 30 minutes in. Got plenty of content coming up from Bobby the Brain Heenan. A few years later, I wanted to get out of managing altogether because of my neck. It was a great career. I had done nearly everything except manage a woman or wrestle a woman. Now, that wasn't by choice. It just never came up. Bruiser didn't use them. Vern Gagne didn't use them either when I was in the AWA. You talk about Dick the Boozer. No, not Moxley. Bruiser from Indiana, the WWA. Bruiser Quetcher? You understand? Hello? Do you see what happens here as soon as I stop and I pause? Do you want me to address her now? Or do we wait? Alexa, play Tropical Beach Sounds. And that's for you guys, because we're trying to get out of this winter into the spring and maybe some baseball. You know my loves, pro wrestling and baseball. After Faith and Family, that's all I have. And you guys here on Chaos Corner. Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel. Shout out to my brothers, Corey and Caleb, the Duke boys. Mr. Saturday Night All Special. Got a barrel of blue and gold. Put a man 6 feet in a hole. Did it. The Duke Boys. I know you're watching. Keep an eye on the Duke Boys. Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. Don't you dare miss it. And the Paradise 4, my home company, on all social media platforms. I was managing Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig at the time. I retired, and I sold him to Coach John Tolos. John was one of those old-timers hanging around and looking for a payday. Can't blame him for that. I became a broadcast journalist, a term that Vince McMahon came up with. Vince, Working for you is like wearing these chains, is what I was told. I could never get the other guy over because I had to talk more about my man. I couldn't get the other heels over. If I managed Rick Rude, I couldn't talk about how good Ted DiBiase was because I had to put all my attention to my wrestler or I didn't consider myself a good manager. Bingo, pro wrestling manager, heel manager 101. That's why I learned from the greats like Captain Lou Albano, Freddie Blassie, Bobby Heenan, Jim Cornette, J.J. Dillon, Paul Ellering, Gary Hart. The list goes on and on and on, and there's others that I'm missing. Freddie Blassie, I think I said Freddie. All right, where were we? DiBiase is good, I'd say. He's got millions and millions of dollars in Swiss banks. But look at the body on Rick Rude. I know money buys everything, but Rude is at his peak right now. If I said nobody could beat DiBiase, that means my man couldn't beat him. Being just a commentator was easier. I could be middle of the road and still be the heel. It was an easy transition and no problem at all. It was something I wanted to do, which is how I molded my career. Didn't make it as the wrestler, although tried the training. Came out as a manager, a heel manager that took the fucking bumps a lot more than any of you out there in the IWC could say. Fans and journalists and podcasters alike. No offense, just the way it was. 2 and 3 times a night. Remember that. And then went on to my color commentary broadcasting career as well. And again, currently in 2025 with Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. My 40-year journey in this fucking industry. Listen to what I'm saying. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I apologize for the F-bombs. I really do. In all reality, wrestling doesn't need a play-by-play guy. Most play-by-play guys come from the radio, where you'd have to describe everything because no one was seeing it. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do what Tony Schiavone does, especially now in AEW. No offense, man. What am I saying? I'm just telling the truth. I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. It was best when it was me and Mike Tenay, and we would talk about the angle they were working, what would happen the next time the two wrestlers meet, and what they were capable of doing. You don't need to call out moves like clothesline and Irish whips, although I think I knew an Irish whip. I think her name was Madeline. I think she was from Connecticut, here in the shadows of Titan Towers. Jim Ross was always very prepared. The times I worked with him, he always had everything down, including football, baseball, and amateur wrestling stats. He's a very educated and well-prepared announcer. He's not well-liked by a lot of the guys because he was put into positions where he had to deal with contracts and other people's money that didn't belong to him. Randy Savage was great to work with, too. He was very professional. If I had a territory, I would have Randy, his brother Lanny Poffo, and their father Angelo working for me because they'll always be there on time. They'll always care about the business and what to do and to do what's right. They know what they should do and shouldn't do. They're businessmen, and that's how it's supposed to be run in the business. A big difference between today's talent and athletes and stars as to those of yesteryear. Now, I'm not saying, Chaos, you're old school. I'm not saying staying stuck in the past, but honor those who paved the way before you. There's a rearview mirror for a reason. It's smaller, I get it, but it's to honor and respect and never forget those who have paved the way and came before you. The carpenters, if you will, the foundation layers, because without them in that rearview mirror, you wouldn't be where you are right now, and you certainly wouldn't get to where you want to go. So honor it. Don't stay back there. Recognize it, research it, study it, learn from it. That'll get you here, and then look at that wide open windshield. The future is ahead. Stay positive, stay healthy, stay full of faith, and then mash the pedal. Full speed ahead. That's what the fuck I'm talking about. Are you listening? I know there's 10 things going on here at Chaos Corner at once. Lanny's heart was in the business because he is from a wrestling family, but he was in the shadow of Randy. That's the way things work sometimes. Jack Briscoe was more valuable than Jerry. Dory Funk Jr. was nothing like Terry. Lanny needed a gimmick, and he needed a manager. And even though he managed guys like Kurt Hennig and the Beverly Brothers, none of the guys wanted him around for the most part. They didn't look at him as a manager, but as an underneath guy. Associating with him made them seem like they were underneath. Do I have to break this down? An underneath guy is someone who isn't in the main event. Hello? An undercarder, a mid-card wrestler, not necessarily a jobber. You get it. There's levels in wrestling, right? Just like with the promotions. Independent ball, A, double A, triple A, the majors, the bigs, if you will. It's the same concept. Valet, manager, ring announcer, referee, jobber, mid-card talent, the big league guys, the champions. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think if you're here watching me, you do. That shows me you're educated. Vince was tremendous to work with on television. At the beginning, I was scared because I didn't like working with the boss. But Vince wasn't the kind of guy that ever yelled at you, at least not at that point. If you screwed up, he would calmly tell you how you should do it. I was doing an interview once where I was making fun of Bruno Sammartino and how old he was. Vince walked away, bumped the camera, and said, uh-oh. He'd say, retake. Most bosses in this business would yell, cut, God damn it, you can't say that. Trust me, I know. I've been on enough sets to know what it's all about. Not Vince. He pulled me aside and quietly said, Bruno really doesn't like it when you talk about his age and things like that. Hello? I don't have to say it again, do I? I don't think I do. Stay with me here. We're going to go about 45 minutes. So we'll go under an hour here on Story Time. It's Bobby the Brain. From manager to broadcast journalist. Hello, McFly. The fuck is that? He was smooth. He never yelled. I went out there and I did it the way he wanted it. I'm the kind of guy who could never play for Vince Lombardi. If you yell at me, I'll go home. If you compliment me and give me a pat on the back, I'll work harder. It's like that with a lot of people. I'm not the kind of guy who is motivated by yelling. Vince was a yeller. Vern was a yeller, Vern Gagne. That's why he didn't have any hair. He would knock it off his head, and with his hand, he'd never say Jesus. He'd say Jeez. He'd never say Christ. He'd say Cripes. He would get so mad. I can understand. About a year after I retired, Vince approached me with an idea. He told me that Ric Flair was coming in. He was going to eventually take the WWF title. He wanted me to manage Flair. From the first time he told me about it, I didn't want to do it. I was still hurting. I lost my heart for it. I used to like to take bumps at the end of the matches and be brought in and thrown into the turnbuckles. I didn't love to work, and it wasn't fun anymore. And my deal was that I wasn't going to manage anymore. I knew that if I didn't do it, they would never dump. They would dump me over it. Pardon me. I want to get it straight there. And they would. They would dump you over it. Would get somebody else to do it. Flair told me that Hogan wanted to work and go on the road for 6 months with me. Flair came in with the WCW title belt, and we showed it on WWF television. But the attorneys got involved, so we had to stop. I agreed to manage him, but only lasted 10 days. I just couldn't work anymore. It hurt so bad. I couldn't sleep at night. I never took pills or medication. I had a beer, a scotch, and wine to help. Flair would say, you don't have to do anything. Just stand there. I said, I can't. I'm going to reach a point where I have to move. When my man is hit, I've got to sell it. It's the truth. The travel schedule was grueling as well. You work 10 days on, 4 days off, 10 on, 3 off, 4 on, 3 off, 10 on. Tell me what the fuck they're doing today in the big leagues. I don't care who it is, WWE, AEW, TNA, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Impact, I think I already said that, the NWA, MLW. How is you doing it now? You just heard that, right? Let that sink in. Totally different. Although the indies right now are like the territories here in 2025 and how much these guys travel, I can vouch for that. The travel schedule was grueling, as we talked about, and we just went through that crazy schedule. But if you finish up in Seattle, one day is used up for travel. Again, remember, 10 on, 4 off, 10 on, 3 off, 4 on, 3 off, 10 on. When you get home, you have laundry and your bills, and you're counting the time. I've got 28 more hours here, you'd say. You'd go to bed, and the next day you'd get up and have to rush everything in one day. I have 1 day left, you'd say. I had to carry wrestling shoes, trunks, 3 sequin jackets, which weighed a ton, and pants and a shirt for Primetime, a show I co-hosted with Gorilla. I carried my manager's shoes, which were Reeboks, but everyone called them my Weasel Wedgies. Not to mention clothes to wear on the street. I had a lot of luggage to carry, and I had to carry it on because I needed to arrive where I was going. Carrying all those bags, renting cars, and rushing to planes was really hard. On my off days, I had to go to Baltimore and do primetime wrestling. Then there might be a personal appearance. Sometimes I didn't get a day off. Are you listening? Is everybody listening out there? I hope your notebooks are out. I tell you that every fucking time. And I apologize again for the cussing. Way too much off the hook. I haven't been on screen in weeks, so guys, cut me some slack. Jim Neidhart worked 80 days in a row. I asked him, how many frequent flyer miles do you have? He said, how the hell do I know? I'm never home to answer the mail. The travel reminded me of one year I worked with the AWA. Once a month, I would go finish up in Toronto on Sunday and fly to Chicago and then 10 hours to Honolulu. Pehea melehini kane, pupule wiki wiki, aloha and mahalo, my brothers. I was off Monday night and Tuesday. I could go to the beach all day. On Wednesday night, I would work. Afterward, I would take planes from Honolulu to Los Angeles, to Denver, to Minneapolis, to Winnipeg. I'd work Winnipeg Thursday night, get up at 6 the next morning to do TV interviews until 10. I'd fly from there to Denver to work, then to Minneapolis the next day to tape the TV show, and then rush to the airport to catch a 5 o'clock flight to Chicago. Say that 3 times fast. From there, we would rent a car and drive 70 miles to Rockford. We'd stay in Chicago that night, but the next morning, we would drive 250 miles to Green Bay. I would then drive to Milwaukee to catch a plane back to Indianapolis. I'm tired just talking about it. Let me adjust one more time. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We're only 40 minutes in. And again, interrupted again by the mechanical AI garbage that we're being presented with from all over the world now for 20 years. Alexa, being kayfabed again by a robot. Alexa, play tropical beach sounds.
Here's a station based
You
on
see that?
tropical beach sounds by Lane
Kayfabe by
Sounds.
the robot. Bookmark this, benchmark it, bookmark it, whatever it is that you do. Just remember it. I managed Flair for a short period of time. I just didn't want to be on the road. The business is funny. When you want to do something, they won't let you do it. But when you don't want to do it, they make you do it. Curt Hennig replaced me as Flair's executive consultant. I was an influence on him, and he even wore a suit with Mr. Perfect embroidered on the back. Vince McMahon called it his Bobby Heenan starter kit. A few months later, in November of 1992, here on the Time Machine in Chaos Corner, the Ultimate Warrior left the WWF. The WWF wanted to turn Curt babyface and team him with Randy Savage at Survivor Series against Flair and Razor Ramon, also known as, obviously, as Scott Hall. I told McMahon to have him turn on me on Primetime Wrestling, which had become a roundtable show with me, Hennig, McMahon, and other WWF grapplers. I would say something bad to Curt, he'd grab me, and I'd start begging off. He would dump some water on me, and I'd turn chicken shit into, well, chicken salad. I suggested to McMahon that Flair go out first at the 1992 Royal Rumble and win it. He had him come out second and change it to make it his own idea. Vince liked to do that, and we know that's the truth. When Sean Waltman joined the WWF in 1993, I came up with this gimmick name of the 1-2-3 Kid. He was going to wrestle Scott Hall, and I suggested that Hall put him over. Scott didn't care, so he did. We were in the car going back to Connecticut with Vince, Pat Patterson, and J.J. Dillon. And Vince asked, what should we call him? Speaking of the 1-2-3 Kid. We should call him the Lightning Kid. Can't do that, Vince said. There's already something with that name, or something like that. Why not call him the 1-2-3 Kid, I suggested. He's just got a 1-2-3 over Scott Hall. He actually liked the idea and used it. Remember what Cornette said when it came to the Montreal screw job, and whose idea it was for that whole angle between Hart and Michaels and the screw job itself, and just taking it back. It was Cornette, and he always said that Vince would rarely, if any, take any suggestions or ideas. So it's confirmed. Flair was a natural from the beginning coming into the WWF. When he first started with Vern, he was the size of Dusty Rhodes and had brown hair. My first encounter with him, from what I was told, was when he was fun and I punched him in the mouth one night outside of the Minneapolis Auditorium. I don't remember that, but he told me the story much later. That was Heenan's first encounter with Flair. Flair got his breakdown in Charlotte, North Carolina after a plane crash that almost ended his career. Just looking at him, you knew they had to put the world title on him. Nobody had hair like him. Well, Hogan did, but he had only half of it. Sort of like a convertible with the top down. Flair always wore the nice clothes and the Rolex watches. He wouldn't mind ripping those clothes apart during interviews. Thousands of dollars it must have cost him. But I'm sure the Crockett's, obviously the promoters of Mid-Atlantic and the NWA, compensated him for that. Flair had the colorful attire and the woo. You could just see that he was the next Gorgeous George. The torch went to him. Flair came on the scene and he was never nervous. He always admired me and Ray Stevens, and I appreciated him for that. He always spoke highly of us, and I could only talk about Rick like that. He was a tremendous performer. He never laid on his ass. He never took a night off, and he went out there and took slams off the top rope for anyone just to get them over in a match. I'll say that to say this because I tell it like it is. Under an hour, little over 45 minutes. Thanks for being here. From manager to broadcast journalist, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Come on back. Tough decisions are coming up. Don't you dare miss it.